Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to change your automatic transmission fluid on a Kia Sorento 2016. This is the SXL model, the V6 3.3 liter 6-cylinder engine, and it's got 26,000 miles on it. I bought it used just recently. So as part of the preventive maintenance I do on a vehicle, when I buy one, I change all the fluids I can change. And the number, ATF is one of them. Now I've noticed on this one, on this Sorento, that second gear is kind of notchy. In other words, it's kind of abrupt when the engine is cold or the transmission is cold. And I do notice it at other times. So I'm hoping that the transmission fluid being changed to what I'm going to use, which is the Valvoline Max Life full synthetic transmission fluid, which is totally compatible with this transmission. The Kia Sorento 2016, at least in the SXL model, the 3.3 liter engine, actually specs SP-IV or SP-4, and this is totally compatible with that. I've checked the data sheet on it, and absolutely it's compatible. So I have no problem using it. I used this same fluid on my 2014 for about 30,000 miles without any problem at all. And I also used it on my Sonata and my Santa Fe. So I have no issues with this fluid at all. I have no issues recommending it at all. And I'll put a link to it in the video description below at Amazon. And basically what I'm going to do is drain the fluid, see what state it's in. If it's really dirty, I'll replace it with this stuff. But also my next oil change, I'll probably replace it again just to clean the transmission fluid that stays behind. Because this fluid change, when you do it the way I do it, you're draining out about 5 liters of 7.8 liters. Because of the way the transmission is designed, you can't drain all 7.8 liters out through the drain plug. So I'm just going to drain out what falls out of the transmission. I'll show you how to do that. And there's 2 liters of old dirty fluid that's going to stay behind in the transmission. And my process is basically dilute that stuff until it doesn't matter anymore by draining and refilling the transmission. Now, just so you know, I called Kia up and asked how much to change my transmission fluid. They said $219. So it's much cheaper to replace it a few times and get the fluid nice and clean. So I'm just going to use this one today. I'll probably leave it in there until the next oil change, and then I'll replace it again. First thing we're going to need to do is to remove the lower engine cover on the vehicle. It's a cover that basically is like a splash guard, engine guard on the bottom of the car. And there's, I believe, 18 bolts securing it to the actual vehicle. And all of them are 10 millimeter bolts. So all you need is a 10 millimeter socket and a driver. This is a 1/4 inch driver, and you can take them all off using this. I'm going to go a little quicker, and I'm just going to use my cordless driver here. I recommend using cordless drivers only for taking nuts off. I wouldn't use it to put it back on because it has a tendency to, number one, strip the bolts, or number two, over torque the bolts. So I'd rather hand tighten them and to put them back in. But for taking them off, totally no problem using the driver. So let's go do that. Now, another thing I noticed on mine is I already checked my bottom cover, and I noticed that it's missing about 4 or 5 bolts. So that's proof that somebody's been under there and they didn't do a real good job putting it back on. So I won't be able to show you, all the bolts you need to take off because some are missing. But after I take the cover off, I'll show you all the holes where bolts should be and where they should go if yours has not been messed with like mine. Certainly note that there was a lot of bolts missing on my part. The transmission's right here, you can see it. The drain plug is the black bolt sticking out of the case there, right there. And basically I have the car currently up on the ramps, on my car ramps. But this service shouldn't be done on the car ramps. It should be done on level ground. But you know, it's much easier to remove that bottom cover when the car is up on the ramp. So I just put it up on the ramp, remove the cover, as you can see right here. Just go around the cover all the way around the perimeter of the cover and remove all the bolts. I removed the center one in the front last because that makes it like easier as the cover is not hitting you as you're removing all the other bolts. So just to remove the center bolts in the front last. So once you remove the bottom cover, just roll the car off the ramps. Go for a 10 or 15 minute ride in the car. Just moderate driving will do. That should bring the transmission temperature up to the required 140 degrees. I did that about 15 minutes ago, so let's just check the transmission case temperature right now. And I'm using my thermometer. It's 146, so it's you know, perfectly in line. Next thing we need to do is begin the process of draining the fluid out of the transmission case. Now remember, everything's at 140 or higher temperature here, so the fluid will be too. So be very careful when you're taking it out to keep your hands and stuff out of the way and not get scalded by the hot fluids. Now another thing you got to watch here, we got to take the filler port bolt off of this, and unfortunately it's very close to a few very hot components in your engine at this point, and that's the upper rad hose here and the lower rad hose is here. So all that fluid is traveling through this area, and that currently is at, let's see what temperature, and I've had it turned off now for about 15 minutes, 157 Fahrenheit. So be careful in this area with these hot components, okay? So just to orientate you, this is the engine cover. This is the air intake on the passenger side. This is the battery, and right here is the positive terminal on the battery. You'll see a big positive sign on it. I don't want to zoom in on that right now. And the actual filler bolt that we need to take off the port is right there. So let's zoom in on it. There it is, right there, that one. And you can see that it has a 3/8 cutout in the center, but I tried to put a socket extension on that and it just wasn't working for me. So it's a 22 millimeter bolt. So I'm going to use a 22 millimeter socket and a couple of extensions to get in there without actually having to put my hand anywhere near the hot stuff for taking it off. So let's show you the different options you have here. Here's my first option. I'm going to use what they call a wobble extension, and you can see that happens on the head too. That gives you a bit of free play because the bolt is slightly underneath the actual battery there, so you're going to be coming at it with an angle, and the wobble gives you a bit less of an angle on it, so you can come on more directly onto the bolt without actually you know, stripping it. Okay, that's one option. That's option number one. The option I'm going to use is I'm going to use a universal connector, this one here, 1/2 inch, and I'm going to put my 22 on it, 22 millimeter, and then we're going to go fit it on like so. And I'll zoom in on it so you can see what's going on there. And you can see that I get a really nice purchase on that. It's straight down on it, and it should be able to come off without any issue at all. So I'm going to attach my 1/2 inch socket driver to it, and we're going to take it off. There we go. And it's not on very tight at all, but you can see how nicely that works. So that's my recommended solution, but the wobble bits will work as well, as you know, also. I mean, and if you can get your hand in there safely, maybe a wrench would do it, but I don't recommend that at all. This is far easier and a lot less likely to get your arms and hands near hot stuff. So there, the actual bolt has released from the casing. Now this is the part where you got to be real careful. You got to reach in there and get that. And all I do is just basically stay as close to the battery as possible as I'm reaching down and staying away from these hot components over here. So just reach down, pull it out. There we go. Now the filler port is open, and basically that allows the fluid to flow out of the transmission really nicely. And the other thing I want to show you here is that this has a O-ring on it. Check the condition of that O-ring. If it's flat, broken, dry, cracked, or whatever, just replace it. And I will put a link to the O-ring size in the video description. But this one looks perfectly fine, so I'm not going to replace it at all. But there it is. That's the top part of the that's the bolt for the filler port off the transmission. Next thing we're going to do is remove the drain plug and drain the old transmission fluid into an oil pan. I'm going to take the temperature off the drain bolt, and you can see here I got 144.3 Fahrenheit, which is well within the spec, which is 140. Perfectly fine with that. Next, I'm going to take that nut off that bolt off using my breaker bar, and it is a 1/2 inch socket, and the breaker bar is obviously a 1/2 inch breaker bar as well. So we're going to twist that off counterclockwise. There we go. We got that loose now. Give it a little twist there. Yeah, we're going to remove that bolt from the case, the ATF case. Notice that there's a spacer there, a washer. That you need that washer, and make sure you keep that washer. Sometimes it gets stuck to the case, but that aluminum washer there is required to seal the bolt when you tighten it down. So make sure you keep it, and don't drop it in the pan. So there we are, pulling it out, and you can see how brown this fluid is. And I will show you later on how much more brown it is. But another thing to notice here is the magnetic drain bolt. You can see all the metal filings on the magnetic drain bolt. So I'll show further on in the video how much metal was on that drain bolt. But for now, I'm just going to let this drain all the way down until it's either dropping out or just trickling out into my pan. And after that, we're going to continue on with the service. Here's the metal on the drain plug. You can see that we have 1.73 ounces or 49.3 grams of initial contamination on that magnetic drain plug. And so we'll clean it off here, and you can see how ugly this stuff is, but obviously this is a good thing to do. You want to clean that magnetic drain plug right off. Now Kia, when they do the service, they do a flush, so they don't remove this plug at all. They remove the feed lines to the transmission cooler and basically suck up the new fluid and drain the old fluid through those transmission lines. So doing it this way, at least you get to clean the magnetic plug. Now the total contamination that you can see here is 0.02 ounces or 0.8 grams of almost a gram of metal filings on that plug, and they're pretty ugly. And don't forget, put that washer back on to the top of the actual drain bolt, okay, right there. That's important. It seals it and keeps it from leaking. Okay, we're ready to put the bolt back in. So basically you want to clean any dirt that may be around the opening here. So we'll do that like that. Good enough. Put the bolt back in, and it's going to be torqued down to 35.4 foot-pounds. So the torque will be 35.4. And I'm using a click type torque wrench on here, and I'll show you all those tools. I'm sure I showed you all the tools. And we're going to torque it right on till it clicks at 35.4. Okay, that's it. We're at the correct torque. The bolt's not moving anymore. Well, it just moved a little bit, but we're good. So again, when you're doing this, don't forget that washer. You can see it in there. It's already on there, but Don't forget it. It needs to be between the bolt and the actual transmission case. Next, we're going to fill up the system and make sure that we don't, we fill it correctly. Well, since this transmission doesn't have a dipstick, as you probably already are aware of, it does have what they call a level plug, and that's right here on the front of the transmission, and basically facing the front of the car. You can see this little round portal. So next thing we need to do is fill it up with fluid, but we need to know how much the correct amount is, and the correct amount is when it drips out in a steady stream from this port. This is the fill level port here. So we're going to remove that plug and then begin filling the system, and when it starts pouring out there in a steady stream, we know we're full. So let's do that. Let's get that. And the best way to get that out of there is a 3/8 inch socket. Just put it in the center and turn it counterclockwise like so. You may want to clean around that port if it's dirty, just to keep dirt from getting into the transmission. And once you get it all the way spun, then you just pull it off like so. Out it comes. And also there's a rubber stopper there, or seal, and you may want to pull that out so it doesn't fall into your pan. Okay, I couldn't get that rubber seal out of there, so I'm just going to use my needle nose here and just pull it out. There it is. Make sure you clean it before you put it back in. And now we're ready to start filling the transmission full of fluid from the top. So here's the next piece of what I would call crucial equipment for doing this job, and that is this very long funnel. I'll put a link to it in the video description below. But as you can see, it's huge, and that is its exact purpose. It's perfect because it reaches way down there, exactly into that fill hole. As you can see how it fits in there really nicely. So now I'm going to take it and I'm going to fill it up using my measuring cup that I have here. And sorry if it's out of focus, but this measuring cup, and I'm going to fill it up about 500 cc's, or a cup at a time, 2 cups at a time, a pint at a time, according to this actual measuring cup, with the ATF fluid I showed you in the beginning. And then, like I said, the fill hole, the level hole is open right now, or level port is open right now. And when we reach the right level, I should be able to hear the liquid draining out and hitting my pan underneath. All right, I can see that it's starting to drip out into the pan. I'm going to put a little bit more in there, and then I'm going to put my rubber stopper my rubber seal and the actual plug into the fill hole. And then we're going to top it up a little bit, take it for a ride, warm up the transmission, and see how much drips out at that point. It certainly is pouring out at this point. I put the rubber seal and the level plug back in. Now I'm just going to pour a little bit in there just to top it up a bit. Probably a quarter of a pint or 180 cc's. Actually I'm going to pour about half of that in there just to make up for the little bit that I let leak out. So there we go. Next, what we're going to do is put the plug on the top and take it for a spin to warm up the transmission. After that, what we're going to do is do the level check one more time. and I'll show you how to do that level check. At which point, if everything's cool, we just put the bottom cover back on and we're done. So I went for a spin. I've got the temperature of the engine up, sorry, of the transmission up at this point. Let me flash it on the transmission. And there you can see that it's 149, so that's pretty good. It's supposed to be 140. That's close enough to do good for me. Next thing you're supposed to do here on the check level procedure is to put 700 cc's into the fill hole of ATF. I think that's a little much. I'm going to put in probably 400 cc's in there, but like I said, they say 700. I think it's too much because basically it just all comes pouring out into the pan anyway. So I'm going to put in 400, and I'll show you why that is when we pull the filler plug out after doing this procedure. So temperature's right. We put the fluid in. Next thing you do is you put the transmission. You alternate between park, drive, then drive to park, and you do this at idle, right? And you do it 2 times, and you pause 3 seconds in each gear. So go to park, 3 seconds, go to drive, 3 seconds, go to park, 3 seconds, go to drive, 3 seconds, and then put it back in park. Shut off the engine and check your fluid level. So we'll do that. I'll do that. I'll put the fluid in. You don't need to watch me doing that again. And after I've done the park and drive procedure, then I'll show you the fluid coming out of the drain hole. One more thing, when you're doing the check level fill procedure at the end and you're putting your 400 in or 300 cc's in, the drain cap is already on, like actually the fill port cap is already on, so there's a air lock in this thing, so pour your fluid in really slowly or you're going to have a mess. Oh, there you go, you hear that? When it burps, you went too fast. You see it backing up in the funnel? Just stop. And there we go. Wiggle the funnel a bit, helps it go down easier. All right, that's it. Now I'm going to put the cap back on, do my park, drive, 3 seconds on each one with the engine running, and then shut off the engine, put it in park, and then we'll check the fill level. So we got the fluid in the car, the extra 400 cc's that I put in there, and here's the drain cap. So, or not the drain cap, but the level cap. See if I can take that off with my fingers. Yeah, I can. So we're going to take that down. All right, there we are. Counterclockwise. I'm going to pull that cap off here. There's that cap. And we see a small stream of fluid coming out. not a lot. Not a lot. So I'm going to put the 700 cc in there. Well, another 300 in because I'm not getting a lot of drip there. I thought I would. I'm surprised. So I'm going to put some more in there and do the procedure again. So I said I put 350, 400 in there, but actually I put 600 in there just to be safe because they said 700. I thought that was a little much, but then I said, oh, what the heck, let's go all the way with it. So I'm going to take out the filler plug here, right there, and then we're going to see how it trickles out. Okay, here we go. I'm going to remove that filler cap, or the level cap. Turn it counterclockwise. Just take it out. See what comes out. Let's put the cap back on there and make sure that the rubber seal is in there, and it is. So let's do it. The tabs on the lock cap should click when you actually turn it into the right position, and you should have the tabs facing, the upper one facing at 2 o'clock and the lower one facing at 7 o'clock, and just pull on it and make sure that it's secure so it doesn't come off. You don't want that falling off on you while you're driving. I verified that the level cap is on nice and tight. I'm going to clean up this excess fluid from the outside of the case. Then up top I'm going to tighten up the fill injection port, or the ATF injection port, so that it's nice and snug, not too tight, just snug. And then I'll put the lower cover on the engine, and at that point I should be done. I wanted to show you the difference between the old fluid and the new fluid. And the old fluid is on the left there, and the new fluid is on the right, and you can see a big difference in color, that's for sure. And then I used a flashlight to go shine light through it, and you can see the light goes right through it, no problem. But the old stuff, you can't get the light to shine through no matter what. And I had the flashlight on the same intensity level as I did on the new fluid, and just no way I could get any light to flow through it, just so you can see how dirty this stuff was, even at 26,000 miles. All right, just to recap, just make sure that at this point you've got all the ports on your transmission correctly sealed. In other words, the top filler port, the level cap, and the bottom drain bolt, which should be tightened to 35.4 foot-pounds. Now, any tools and supplies that you saw in this video will be available from Amazon in the video description below. There'll be links for it there. And if you need anything that I used, or you saw something you liked, just click down there and you can get it from Amazon anytime you like. Now, I'm very happy that I did this service on this car, because otherwise I wouldn't have noticed or known that there was 5 bolts missing on my lower bottom cover. I mean, that to me is a little concerning. It's sort of annoying too, because it tells me that somebody worked on this vehicle who wasn't paying much attention or didn't care to put those 5 bolts back. So, you know, that's why I do my own service, because I get to find these things out and fix them. I did put the 5 new bolts on there, and I'm much happier with how that cover goes back on. Obviously, the oil or the fluid in this transmission was really dirty, as you saw in that clip where I showed the 2 bottles. The one on the left was clearly much dirtier than the new stuff I put back in. I will probably do this service again in the future, probably my next oil change, just to clean it up that much more. I mean, Kia wants $219 to do a flush on this transmission. If you don't know what a flush is, basically what they do is they disconnect 2 hoses going to the transmission cooler, and they dump the fluid into one bucket and suck the fluid back out from another bucket until the transmission fluid runs clean out of the other hose. So, you know, it's got its merits, because a flush does change all the fluid, but they don't take off the drain plug and clean the metal particles off the magnetic plug. They leave the drain plug on. They do not do that. I asked them, they don't do it. So I'm happier doing it my way, and I get to clean the metal filings that were flying around in the fluid off the magnetic plug, which makes me feel better. All right, if this video helped you out in some way, or if you like this video, give me a thumbs up by clicking on the button right down here, and just clicking on the thumbs up. I appreciate that. It helps my channel and my videos. Also, somewhere here on the screen, you should see a picture of me, and that will be a link to subscribe to this channel. So anytime that I put a new video out, if you have subscribed, you'll get a notification that I've got a new video up, and then you can watch it at your leisure. Once again, like always, I want to thank you for watching and for your time.